Good morning, everyone. Hello, it is Janine, the pricing lady here. I'm so happy to have you with us today. I have a very special guest, and I will welcome her in just a moment. Before I do that, for those of you that are new, I'd like to let you know that I am Janine Liston, also known as the Pricing Lady, and I work with small business owners to help them know how to price their goods and services, feel more confident in those prices so that they can close more deals. Today, I have a very special guest. I'm extremely excited to have her here with me as Dr. Charlene Reeves. So hello and good morning, Charlene.
Hi, Janine. I'm so happy to be here with you. This is really exciting for the first part of the year. I love starting like this.
Yeah, this is a great way to kick off the year. Thank you so much for joining. You're also in California, right?
I am, and right now I'm in my Mexico home on the beach in San Felipe.
Oh, fantastic. And for those of you who know, I'm usually in Switzerland. I'm actually in California as well today and visiting my family here. I'm so happy for all of you who are watching us live. So welcome to you as well. As we go through the show, if you have questions, be sure to type them into the chat so that we can get them addressed. So Charlene, why don't we start by having you introduce yourself?
Oh, well, I'm Dr. Charlene Reeves, and I work with small businesses also, authors, coaches, entrepreneurs, who are trying to develop programs that are easy to sell. And let me tell you what I mean by that is that they develop programs that aren't related to the clients that they want to work with. That's the biggest challenge. And then they're out looking for a needle in the haystack, right? And they can't stay in business very long. So what I do is I help them develop 3 integrated programs that are priced correctly so that they're really easy to sell.
Very good. Excellent. So I was very excited. So Shirlene and I, we met at the World Economic Forum in London late last year. I was going to say earlier this year, but it was
it's just November. It's been a month.
Exactly. And I thought, oh, what a great topic, heart-based selling, or what a great pair of topics, heart-based selling and pricing to bring together. And we can talk about, what heart-based selling really is and how pricing is an important part, or how that is integrated into that. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about what you mean by heart-based selling?
Oh, heart-based selling is so important. Have you ever been chased down a hallway trying to hide out in a bathroom when somebody's going, but you didn't buy yet? Oh, can we meet now? Can we get together? I want to talk to you about this product. I want you to know what it is that I'm doing now. Have you had that experience?
I think most of us have felt chased down the hall by a salesperson.
Well, that's not heart-based selling. Heart-based selling is building a relationship, getting to know somebody before you ever try to sell them. Because if you take the time to do that and you really care about the person that you're talking to, they're going to eventually say, what do you do? I met with a client yesterday on Zoom. We had tea together, and I heard all about what she does and who she is. And finally, at the end of the call, she said, I'd like to know what you do. Well, guess what? We had to make another appointment, right? So that we could get back together again and she could learn what I do. But that's what it's all about, is first finding out who you're talking to. And there's a really important reason for that. Would you like to know what it is?
Of course.
Well, everybody you talk to is somebody you can work with in some way. Mm-hmm. So you can either sell them your product or your program, or you can refer them to somebody else and make an affiliate fee. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So either way, you win. And all you have to do is build that relationship from a heart-based position.
Yeah, yeah. That is brilliant. I think it's, I say this to people all the time, even about pricing as well. I mean, it always starts with understanding who your customer is.
Yes.
Who am I targeting? What is it that they are really not targeting? Targeting is even the wrong word when you come to heart-based, but, who is it that I can help the most? And what is it that they understand so that I can understand how best I can be of service to them? And you're right. Sometimes that's putting them or showing them another direction they could go, another type of work they could do with someone else. And sometimes that's going to be working with you. But understanding your customer has to be at the center, in my opinion, of what you do.
Absolutely. Understanding the person for who they are. Yeah. Who are they in our world? Because everybody's so different and they all have different needs and they really want to be heard. Mm-hmm. And they want to be able to trust you. And if you just barrel down the hallway trying to sell them, they're never going to trust you. Yeah. So it's taking time to get to know people first, I think.
Yeah. I also find it a really beautiful thing when it comes to, say, the sales call without it being a sales call. You know, when you have this conversation with a client and it goes in a way that at the end they're asking you, well, how can I work with you? As opposed to having to say, this is how we could work together. I find that whole process and that outcome at the end of a call a very uplifting process for both
right.
and the client. Yeah.
Right. And they will ask what you do. And have you noticed that, well, I'm going to give you a little tip. Okay. The person that's asking the questions, like you are today, is the person that's in control. Right. So if you are asking questions, you always maintain the control of the conversation. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you leap in and start to explain what it is that you do and how you can help them, you've totally lost control. So it's always best to hold back as long as you can until you have that next appointment.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. So Shirlene, can you tell us a little bit about your own journey with pricing? And then I'd like to circle back to the heart-based selling afterwards. But share with us a little bit about about pricing and your journey as an entrepreneur and a business owner.
You know, I went through this long ago. I had a California C corporation, mm-hmm. and I had 23,000 people working under me. And I had over, I don't know, maybe 250 clients. And they consisted of title companies, realtors, lenders, and anyone that had something to do with property or loans. Right. And it took me quite a while to determine the best price. I call it the sweet spot. Right. And because in that journey, I did a lot of speaking, a lot of training, a lot of coaching for mm-hmm. real estate agents and lenders so that they have their clients prepared prior to the escrow process. Right. And I thought, man, what is this worth? I don't know what it's worth. And I originally started out doing this myself. I was the only person in my business long before I was a corporation. And I think pricing was the most difficult. So I thought, what am I worth? You know, what am I worth? If I can get this escrow through for somebody, then what is that worth to them? Well, I found out, I started out charging just $50. Whoa, did they get a deal? Because I was making sure that the lender got paid, the realtor got paid, and the escrow officer got paid. That's a lot of people, right? So once I really got that up and running, and sometimes when you have a program you want to develop, you want to do a beta course. Mm-hmm. And that means you're just testing it. So you could do it for like $47 so that you could get testimonials and tips on how you could better that program. So yeah, that warrants $47. But then I found out when I'm taking care of all of these people, I decided, hey, I think I need more than this for an hour worth of work. So I started charging $100 to see if that was a reasonable price, and $200 if it was 2 sets of docs. Mm-hmm. Well, they bought into that very, very easily. And when they buy into it very easily, that means you can still raise your price, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how, and you probably know all of this anyway. So when I'm talking to people about programs, I talk about 3 integrated programs, and the pricing goes up depending on what they need. And that 3rd program is your one-on-one coaching. So that's going to be the most expensive that you charge, where group pricing, they can get in for less money. They don't get the special attention, but they still can get into something they can afford.
That's something that I encourage people very much to do. The 3 packages, I think, is a really important, and there's 2 reasons why. One, in my opinion, is that you're giving people different value options. So the packages really only work when there's different levels of value involved.
Correct.
Because that also then allows you to have the second point, which is different price points. So you give people trade-offs when you give them those 3 packages. And then, of course, from a human psychology perspective, you can also steer. I know not everybody's comfortable with that, but you can steer customer behavior as well, depending on what you do, what you include in those different packages.
Right.
And so it's really good for you, also for them. And often I like to think of them as a do it yourself, do it with me, and have it done for me version.
Yeah, depending on what your package is.
Right. It depends on what it is. But when you think of it in that context, then it's very helpful to both you and the client, because then they can, sort of choose, in a sense, what level of service or what level of value. So for some people, it's also products.
Right.
So what level of value they're going to get from those products or services.
Exactly. And what it is, because I have 3 separate programs that people can enter into at any time.
Right.
So they don't have to start with this and then move to that and then move to that. So say they already have their programs developed, then they go into my selling course.
Right.
If they're really good at sales and they know their target market and their pricing and programs, then they're probably going to want to go into massive visibility media. Yes. And learn how to do what we're doing right now.
Right. Excellent.
It depends on their needs.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. So welcome and hello to all of you who are watching us here. I hope that you're enjoying this. Let me say hello to, I think Pat is out there, and the rest of you who are watching us live, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions for Shirlene or I, please do put them in the chat and we'll try to address them. Oh, hello, Kishat. It's good to see you too. Welcome to watching the show. So let's talk a little bit more about pricing in the context of heart-based selling. I'd be curious, how do you say, I think, how do I want to put this? A lot of people have a hard time, small business owners especially, have a hard time reconciling their own fears or issues with money in the context of pricing in their businesses, and therefore, have a hard time. Their sort of solution to dealing with money and being kind to customers is by offering low prices. And I'm not totally convinced, let's put it that way, that, heart-based and being kind or compassionate when it comes to selling and what you offer isn't about just giving the customer all the benefits, but it's actually being kind to yourself at the same time. And I'd be curious what your thoughts are around this topic of pricing and money and how that fits into heart-based selling.
Well, Janine, that's really interesting that you even brought that up, because I never even thought about that. You brought something up. I'd never even taken that into consideration. And that is a good thing to take into consideration. Kindness isn't about your pricing. Heartfelt is all about connecting from one heart to another. Okay. It's not about giving yourself away for free. Right. And I believe that, and I've witnessed it with many of my clients, that if you don't charge enough for who you are, they don't see the value in who you are or your package or program.
Correct.
They don't see it at all. So when you charge, you want to be fair. I mean, some people out there have charged up to $18,000 for a package. Mm-hmm. They're out of business now. So I think we need to be fair. I think you really need to ask other people, other mentors, or other people in your business, this is what I'm going to do. What do you think about this pricing? Go out to your target market and ask what they think about your pricing choice. And I have people sometimes and I do this myself. They'll say to me, oh, that's nearly not enough.
Right.
But then you remember I said a little earlier, you have to find that sweet spot. So when you go to a client and you try and charge that price and they're backpedaling like crazy, then you know that's too much. Even if somebody else said, oh, you're worth so much more than that. Yeah, you are. But maybe that person can afford it and really needs you. So don't give it away, number one, because then you make people feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And number two, price it fairly so that they know that the value is there.
Right. So 2 points came up for me in that. One is, and now hopefully it didn't just leave my head.
You're too young for a senior moment.
Call it blonde then.
Okay.
So one really important point. No, it did leave. So I'll go to the second one. So the other thing that I thought was really interesting in that is around the I really am having a hard time right now. I'll call
Must be all the holiday.
I'll call it jet lag since I just have been here a day. Let's leave it at that. So moving on. All right. So one of the things about value is the value is so relative. And what one person sees as perfectly good price for something, somebody else thinks is an outrageous price. And outrageous can be either way too low or way too high. That leads me back to the first thing I want to say, which is that people's perception of what is value is so different, and it can be very contextual. So if today I decide I want to go buy a new pair of shoes tomorrow and I have the money for it, if I go to the bank and find out my account has been drained, then all of a sudden my willingness to pay for something can be completely different in just a moment. Yeah. Or I see something else that I think, oh, actually, you know what? I really need that now. I'll have to wait on this. To me, a lot of times when people say something is too expensive, they're actually saying it's not a priority for me right now.
Well, and you can always find that out by saying, I offer the ability to make payments. Yeah. That's always your second line, because if they can make payments, a lot of times they'll do it. Yeah. And they just don't have enough, or they don't have enough that they don't want to put that much on their credit card right now. You never know. But I always offer payments to my clients.
Right. So we have a question here from Pat. Thank you, Pat. How about the influence of the marketplace or market price? Sorry, I don't have my glasses, my reading glasses on my
They're on your head.
The market price. So what is the influence of the market price? Well, so that's a very good question. Thank you for asking that, Pat. I think what's really interesting about market price is that it's usually a very broad spectrum. And I like to call it, we go from price takers, which are usually your people or businesses that are trying to compete on price. So they're low price leaders, to price makers, who are your premium price products who set prices in the market. And then there's everything in between. And you can look at about just any product or offer out there. If we take coaching, for example, you'll find coaches who charge $25, $50 an hour, and you'll find those who charge $100,000 for a day or more. Right? So in that context, there's one question is, what is the market price? And oftentimes it's going to be very related to who those people are actually targeting. So we come back to who is the target customer in that context. What
are they willing to pay?
Right.
That's why you do that work in the beginning. Yeah. To talk to them about what it is that you're doing and ask them what their thoughts are on what you're charging.
Right.
Because you're right. There's such a huge perspective in changing, in moving through the prices and trying to figure it out. And you've got to do that sweet spot. That's really, really important. And if it's way too easy, then you know you're not getting nearly enough money.
Right. So one of the tools that I use with clients quite often is called a willingness to pay survey, and I have a tool that goes with it where we don't ask customers directly, how much are you willing to pay? And the reason we don't ask the question directly is because of bias. But we ask them, what is the cheapest price that you think would still deliver the value? And what's the highest price where you think it couldn't be worth that much? And then you ask enough people and you start to understand what that bandwidth is around the sweet spot. And that's a really wonderful way to start to understand better how much your target market might be willing to pay. It's also important to understand that if you ask customers who have worked with you before,
that's what I was going to say. That's what I do.
Versus people who aren't familiar with you, you will get very different answers quite often.
Yes, because they don't know the benefits that they're going to receive.
Right, right. So you need to make sure that you look at those two different segments in a different way. Very interesting. Yes. So Shirlene, we need to start wrapping things up here. I'd like to also say hello to Marcia, who also joined us live. So hello. And are there any final words or anything else you'd like to share with people before we sign off?
Well, first I want to just say I really love our discussion here. I just really have enjoyed being with you. And I love it if you would go to heartbasedselling.com and you can get the little starter kit, the sales starter kit that I'm offering. And it talks all about who your target market is, how to work with them. It's not all just about sales. It's about business as well, because the most important thing with sales, and you mentioned fear earlier, is that you do sell or you won't be in business very long. And I work with a lot of people who have fear of being pushy, fear of actually asking for money. Oh my gosh, there's so many that are afraid of that. And particularly in the mid-generation between 50 and 65, because in those days they weren't allowed to talk about money or even ask how much somebody was making. Right. So I just want you to go get that heart-based selling at heartbasedselling.com and get that starter kit. I think you'll really enjoy it, and it'll give you a lot of really good information very quickly.
Right. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that here and offering it. And I encourage all of you to go and check it out. Thank you as well for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure.
Again. I loved it.
The show. All of a sudden it was time and I thought, oh, wow, that went really quickly. Great. So thank you everyone so much for joining us today. I have also one thing I'd like to share with you. I have a pricing scorecard online. So if you're interested in pricing your business and understanding it better, you can go to JanineListon.com/pricing scorecard and get your own personalized scorecard and start learning more about how to do pricing better in your business. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Best wishes and all the best in the new year. I hope that you get everything that you're looking for. I wish you health, happiness, and lots of success in this year. All the best and see you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Bye.
Bye.